Good afternoon, everyone. Today, I want to have a little change because boxing and the boxing community is sometimes an ugly place. A lot of people are only interested in the stories that are controversial or negative. A lot of people like to focus on negativity and the negative stuff. And it sometimes, no news is good news because a lot of people are not interested in good news, and good news doesn't seem to go very far or be that impactful. People concentrate more on negativity and hate and that sort of stuff. And I know this is a sport where the sole aim is to render your opponent unconscious, essentially. But that doesn't mean that you can't be a good individual and have some grace and have some class. And it doesn't get lauded enough. It doesn't get celebrated enough for me. So a lot of people are probably going to hate this video because it's a positivity video. And I like positivity. And I like guys that handle themselves well and handle themselves with a bit of class and have a bit of respect for themselves, others, and the sport in general. I'm going to talk about two guys. And both of them at times, and especially one of them, gets kind of a bit of ridicule in the comments, which, again, I don't like negativity, especially when it's unjustified. But I want to talk about the good stuff. Now, one of these guys is Fabio Wardley. He's local to my area of the country. I think he's a fantastic example of what you can do with limited background, limited experience, and just if you put enough work in and if you've got enough internal fight, you can do well, and you can do it whilst carrying yourself with a bit of class and a bit of grace. I've just watched the press conference for Fraser Clarke, Fabio Wardley. I'll briefly talk about the fight, but we'll talk about that more at a time. But Matthew Macklin made a good point about Fabio Wardley and said that, has Fabio Wardley spent too long institutionalised to the amateur ranks? And what he means by that is Fraser Clarke is a very upright, very textbook, very correct boxer in a true amateur style, in a true amateur sense. So there's not a lot to work out from him. There's not a lot to do your homework on because it's all very by the numbers. It's boxing by the numbers. And for that reason alone, and for a reason that I'll come to shortly, I favour Fabio Wardley in that fight. Ever since Fabio Wardley sort of burst on the scene, and Fraser Clarke said in this, he tried to belittle the fact he'd come from the white-collar ranks, and he said that white-collar boxing is the hardest man in the town who fights in a so-called charity show where everyone's making a little dip from the kitty, and you just knock out a few guys from the pub. To which Fabio Wardley replied, and he said, yeah, I suppose that's true. I was the hardest guy in the town, and I knocked out all the other hardest guys in the town, which was a great comment and very true. And the thing about Fabio Wardley is, and this became apparent to me when he was hosting the Day of Reckoning very first press conference, what an astute and very, what's the word I'm looking for? Presents himself very well, talks very well. He's got a wonderful vocabulary. He can put himself over very well, and he does it in a manner of class and a manner that's respectful. And he's a very astute young man and a very sort of accomplished young man for someone who's had very little sort of background or very little experience in the sport. And I just think he's a wonderful role model. He's a wonderful role model for kids because regardless of what the background and where his education in violence comes from, he handles himself very well, and he's a wonderful role model. Just presents himself very well. He's a dream for TV. I mean, he'd done a very good. There was a sort of a sit down on TNT, and I think it was pre-direct. And again, I think it was Carl Froch, George Groves, Steve Bunce, Fabio Wardley, and a few others. And most of those guys have had quite a few years doing the media stuff, but Fabio fitted in quite well. And the thing about Fabio, and Eddie Hearn said this about Carl Froch, the question was asked to Eddie Hearn, if you were in a dark alley at night, in a hostile area, in the small hours of the morning, and you wanted someone by your side, who would it be? To which Eddie Hearn replied, Carl Froch, because that is one hard bastard. And he is, you know that. That's Carl. And you get that with Fabio Wardley. If I was in, hostile territory in the early hours and I wanted a team by my side that I knew I could count on, put Fabio straight on that list, because you guys will have seen in Fabio's fights, when Fabio gets wounded and hurt and cut, there's an absolute killer. There's an absolute dog that comes out of Fabio Wardley. And no amount of experience, no amount of money, no amount of anything, that can't be faked. That killer instinct and that true internal hard man cannot be faked. And it's something that is priceless. That will win Fabio Wardley, as it has done, many fights, and that will carry Fabio Wardley through his career. No matter how good he gets technically, that will always serve him and it will never leave him. Long after everything else has left, that will never leave. But I thought Fabio deserves a little video, because great guy, fantastic individual, fantastic mental strength, overcome a lot. And I just think he's a great ambassador for the sport, and a true fighter. And that's what I respect in fighters, that true fighting instinct is, like I said, that's something that can't be bought, can't be faked, and he has that. So hats off to Fabio Wardley. Now, I heard it mentioned that a future possible opponent for Fabio Wardley, and this is the second guy I want to talk about today, and I want to sort of celebrate him today. The Romford Bull, Johnny Fisher. Now, he gets it a little bit in the comments as well, but in terms of just an honest fighting man, Johnny Fisher, I just can't help but warm to. I like listening to him speak because of what he looks like, and because of sort of that whole Essex sort of boy, Romford boy, and he comes across as he's quite an astute guy when you listen to him speak. I love the fact that he talks about his late granddad, and he was talking in an interview in Vegas at the weekend before his one-round blowout, and he was saying that, he still carried his granddad everywhere, and whatever fight he did, whatever he went to when he was coming from the sport, his granddad was always there. And they're just the true family man, and those sort of old school values of family and community and being a good person. And Johnny Fisher went on to speak in that about how, just because he talked about a story at university and he saw quite a bit of bullying, and he would never have it on his watch. So he would not, if he saw some guys bullying some other guys, he wouldn't have it, because as Johnny Fisher said, and this was very much the theme when I was in the later years of school, this sort of thing went on, and there was a group of us that wouldn't have this, because bullying is the most disgusting thing. It's one of the most disgusting representations of all that's bad in human nature, and it really is just a horrible thing. And Johnny Fisher went on to say that just because you're big like Johnny Fisher, he could go around and bully a lot of people, most people, couldn't he? And he said, but you don't do that. You don't have to go around and be that. And I just thought that was a wonderful thing by Johnny Fisher. And like I said, he talked about his late granddad, and he thanked his supporters so much, and all the people who travelled with him, and he sort of made no secret of the fact that he understood it was very expensive to come and do these things. And he also went on to talk about, which is very interesting, and I know my man, shout out Joe Stunner, I know my man Joe will appreciate this, because me and Joe had a lengthy conversation one night about our love for movies, both being self-admitted cinephiles. And Johnny Fisher, while he was in Vegas, went to what they call the old part of Vegas, and went to the old Riviera, where they shot the interior location shots for the Scorsese film Casino, with obviously De Niro, Sharon Stone, Joe Pesci. Again, me and Joe Stunner had a conversation about it. Joe Pesci, huge fans. But he went on to talk about what a sort of a fan of cinema he was, and how it sort of he met his heroes by going to the old Riviera, which was shot for the internal location shots for the film Casino. So it's just a really insightful chat with Johnny Fisher. And you're just like, in an age of bad press, bullshit, unsavoury behaviour, the likes of Fabio Wardley and Johnny Fisher, regardless how far they go in their careers, I just think that being a good human and being a good role model and being a good individual isn't celebrated enough, and I think it should be. And you probably give me shit for this and say this is some sort of soft-ass hippie shit. But listen, I've seen enough of the ugly side of life. And that's why I have an appreciation of all that's left that's good, if that makes sense. So whatever, you don't have to like this video or whatever, but I just think it deserves talking about. And because of the muted match between the two for the future, Fabio Wardley and Johnny Fisher, just for a second, stop what you're doing and just imagine those two teeing off in the ring. If that doesn't present one of possibly the best British heavyweight matchups ever in terms of an entertaining fight, I don't know what does. Part of me doesn't even want that match made because I love both guys so much, I don't want to see a loser. But the fight fan in me is licking my lips at the prospect of that. Anyway, bit of a womble today, bit of a waffle, but, you know, I just want to put something positive out there and some feel good, and let's celebrate the good people in the sport, because there is good people in the sport. And for that reason, it's the best sport in the world. So anyway, that was it. I'm out. I'll see you all soon.